Hey there, I'm Colin Weston, host of the Mod Golf Podcast. So, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I just finished up, I gotta say, one of the most fun, energetic podcast recordings I have done, I think, on almost 8 years. That's no overstatement there. And that was with Gina Phillips. And I'm gonna have Gina come on in a second here, but I gotta do a little intro for her, let you know all the good things that she's doing in golf and outside of golf. She does so much. We've already talked about her, her focus issues here and mine also, and how we're going to focus down on a few other things that we didn't talk about in the podcast because I really want to encourage you to go back and listen to that podcast. We'll keep that link down below there for you in comments. So if you really enjoyed this, you'll even learn more on the podcast. So go over there with Mod Golf. Okay, so hey, Gina is an actor, writer, producer, and media content creator in the broadcast industry. And Gina has a strong connection to golf, both as the co-host of Score Golf TV and her collaboration with the PGA of Canada as a writer and on-camera host with a focus on making the game more accessible and relatable for women. And that's just like that's just one of the plates she's got spinning up in the air there. She does so much more. And we're going to get into that right now. But to start it off, let's bring her on. And there she is. Gina, welcome back to Mod Golf. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm also very energized by our conversation. So yeah, it's a feedback loop. It's not just all me.
It is. And we talked about, we talked about your background in improv and how that's informed not only your writing career and your acting career, but also your golf game and what you've done there. So we kind of talked about that. That was really interesting. So perhaps you and I are just offering back and forth, this kind of riffing off each other, not dead ending each other here. We're gonna continue to do that. And one of the things we left off on the podcast, we're going to talk about, is the growth of golf with women, and you're doing a lot of work there, and you've got got some strong opinions. I think are all really valid opinions here. But let's start with one thing, and I'll say this as a middle-aged guy, and I've seen this on the golf course, sadly, and I like to think I have not, because I like to make golf welcoming for women. So I don't think I'm part of the problem, hopefully part of the solution. But sadly, I have still seen that there's so many guys that when they see women on the golf course, they'll kind of roll their eyes and they're going to be really slow. They're not going to be capable. They're going to somehow ruin their experience, which is a joke because they're actually ironically ruining the women's out there and even saying certain things that are not always appropriate. So let's start there. So hey, you can go as deep as you want here. I'll give you the floor here. What you've seen on the golf course and kind of that interactivity, that culture on the golf course, especially between men and women.
It's really weird, Colin, because I didn't start talking about women's golf until truly just a few years ago. I was always one of the hosts of Score Golf television on TSN, and it was just about golf in general, golf courses. I was a travel host. The whole talking about women and golf and getting more women into golf and making golf acceptable for everybody happened naturally because I'm a woman. And by that, I mean, I've been given stories all constantly to write, women in golf. And I'm like, man, that's it's a lot of heavy lifting. And I realize I'm one of the few golf journalists that are female. Okay, I guess I'm the one to do it because I'm the one person. And then you start looking around, you're like, why am I the one person, right? And then people come to me, wow, it's so inspiring. You get out there and play with all these men, and then I and then I see people kind of stutter when I talk about playing golf, and then I'm a golf host, and then they're like, what? Men are just like, whoa, their brains explode, and I was just like, oh, I'm a pretty confident person. Probably more confident than, for better or for worse, anyone around me. So for me, suiting up in a golf outfit and getting out there in a game I don't truly understand and talking about it as a broadcaster, that's fine because I think I'm good at my job. But I don't think there are a lot of women that would have been I belong there. I could do that job. A lot of female broadcasters that would be like, I could step into those shoes because it's golf. And so I started realizing, okay, when you're like weakness is your superpower kind of thing. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I'm a woman. Oh, I'm a woman. Oh, I'm a woman. Like, ah. And then being like, okay, I can make change because I'm a woman. So that's when I started writing about women. But honestly, like, I don't want to give the impression that it's like I came onto the golf scene wanting to make a difference and tell these men how it is and like show up as a woman. Like, I literally didn't even consider my gender until it was pushed so strongly in my face that I'm like, fine, I'll be a woman on the freaking golf course. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not a woman, so I can't. If I said yes, I know exactly what you mean. That would be disingenuous. So I'm not going to say that. I think I could be empathetic and relatable in other ways. So let me ask you this: Have you found? I don't want you to throw anybody in the under the bus here of your previous or perhaps but future employers
Yeah.
here in the golf media space. But do
Yeah.
you find you also get pigeonholed or only asked to write or cover stories that involve women in golf rather than just a golf story? Is that a problem?
Yeah, recently that has been happening.
Really?
When I was in the
Yeah.
fold more on camera as a host, that was different because I had a show. So we had to fill the time of the show with all different stories of all different angles. When the show ended and I'm suddenly just a freelance writer, yeah, like a lot of stuff comes my way that is just for women. I cover that women's golf day or whatever it is, and I'm not going to turn it down. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, that sucks, because I think true equality is women. It would be a female journalist writing about Tiger Woods. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that's equality to me? Like, continually writing about women's golf because I'm a woman, but not being able to actually be in the fold, be in the mix, pitch my own ideas. Like, my ideas don't always get taken, right? So I think that's been a little bit jarring. And then as a result, I'm kind of known now as like a female golf writer about women's golf issues. I don't know how that happened. I've done so many pieces that are not about women's golf.
Right.
But then I'm like, okay, I guess it's necessary. I don't hate the label. So let's roll with it. And it's funny. I think that's like a really unintentionally sexist thing that happens. I think everybody means well. But truly, I was at the Golf Journalism Association Awards last year, and we had this like really blunt conversation of like, why am I the only one in the room or one of the very few writing about golf for these traditional magazines and these traditional outlets? If you're looking to grow the game, well, you got to look around and you got to face what the current situation is instead of like, what changes can we make? It's like, well, what are you doing with the people that are there, and how are you empowering them when they do come along? Instead of just covering a women's golf day, you need to like empower your female writers to write whatever the hell they want. And I think female perspective comes through. I don't even know if it's female perspective. It's just my perspective, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's like writing about diversity. I mean, I know of one Black female golf writer in Canada, and she's not just writing about Black perspective. She just happens to be Black. And when she writes, perhaps a different perspective comes through, or perhaps it doesn't. We'll never know. But you've got to put those storytellers in a position of power so that when they think, oh, wouldn't this be a good story idea? Maybe it's going to be something you never even dreamed of. But there's such low risk taking in the golf industry right now, I would say, in terms of broadcasting and journalism.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. From what you're more deeply embedded in that as compared to me
Mhm.
as an independent content creator here, just doing what I do. Uh, so I'm going to put it out there. So, what would
Yeah.
you like to write about? What would you like to cover? What other issues or even events? What in the
Oh,
golf space that has nothing to do with gender?
right. Well, I mean, I always get intrigued by people. I love writing about people that inspire me. And so
Yeah.
whether they're, I did write about a queer female Indigenous golfer long drive golfer, Irene Crowchild in Alberta,
Okay. All
and
right.
yeah, like that ended up being a really cool. It won a diversity award.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, I just thought it was a good story, but yeah, it was about diversity. It totally was. So yeah, that was a great place for it. But that's another thing too. It's like, oh my gosh, the more we create these like very specific spaces for diversity or for women, it's still, you're going to have that like, I mean, I think it's just part of the transition that we're all going through in society. But like, I'd rather it just be seen as a golf story, because if it's a female golf story written by the one female writer, it's just gonna come off so female. And like, why are men gonna read that? Will they read
Right.
it?
Ew,
Will
yuck.
they? Would you? Like, I don't know. Like, I
Well,
might have
I might be
fantasy.
the exception to the rule. I would, but I know that of the 150 guys in my weekend men's group, that the majority of them would not. They would not.
Right. I know. And yet, like, they might end up hearing about the story and be like, oh, cool. I didn't know a Canadian won the World Long Drive Championship in 2000. When did she win? 2015? I didn't know that. That's a cool story. Oh, she happens to be queer and indigenous, and like that's like irrelevant. And I did make it part of the story, so this is
Right.
kind of like two different rants. But I just think we need to cover these things outside of the like diversity glitter. Does that make sense? That the
It
like,
does. I do. Yeah, somebody maybe, yeah, maybe you need to somehow kind of fake it that it's something else than people just accidentally they come for the golf, and they stay for the DEI. I don't know.
yeah,
Is that a
right.
thing?
I don't know. I like that. I like that. Well, it
There we
was
go. I'm
really
still
cool.
workshopping that one there. We'll figure that out. We're improv. We're back and forth here.
Yeah,
We'll get
exactly.
that
It's
one right.
all just yes and until it makes sense.
That's right. But to your point, I agree, and this is the way I don't have a formal background in journalism at all. As I've told you, that
Yeah.
mentioned that my background's in architecture and design, and kind of stumbled into the
Mhm.
golf industry through entrepreneurship and some ventures, and the work that I've done with Topgolf and some others, that whole entertainment side, and kind of here I am. So I don't
Yeah.
have that background, but I love that storytelling piece. And quite often the episodes where I'm going out to, whether it's the PGA show or I'm going to an event, I don't even know what the stories are, and that excites me. I want that through observation and
Yeah.
conversation, having those stories reveal themselves, and then
Yes.
dig deep into that while I'm there. And that, I think those ones are the most awesome and the most authentic, and kind of finding those out. And it just happens to be that it's a golfer with Down syndrome, or it happens to be whatever that is. That's just kind of extra awesomeness that's sprinkled on top.
And they become very human stories, right? And that's what I find so interesting. As an actor, I find like the human condition very fascinating. And so when it came to covering sports, I really fell for interviewing athletes because it's a dramatic, emotional thing that they go through.
Yes.
Sports is kind of where those human stories thrive, because they're overcoming their fears. They're having to like get over personal stuff and focus on the golf course. Like, it's just how you talk about golf. It like all relates to life. And so when I write about stories, it's almost like I'm not writing about sports at all. I'm just writing from like the human condition perspective. I found the PGA of Canada story that I did last year was a prime example. I just like got invited to the Ladies Golf Club of Toronto to play. And when I got there, I'm playing with the pro, and she's telling me the history of that course.
Okay.
And I ended up writing the most female-y story ever. And like, okay, so it starts with her just explaining how Ada, okay, the founder of the course, basically she started this golf course just out of necessity, because she was competing all over the world, and the men were at war, and she was playing at home all the time. And then the men came back from war, and they were like, get out of here, like,
Yes.
why are you taking our tee times? And she's like, because I got to practice because I'm like winning all these like trophies overseas. And
Right.
she literally had to go to England to practice playing.
Wow.
So she just out of necessity. She wasn't like women's blah blah blah. Like she was not into like doing this huge female led movement where like I want a place where only women can play. She just was like, I literally just need to bring my sticks to a place where I can just get better and I can work my swing. So she convinced like Toronto's societal elite that this would be a worthwhile venture. And a lot of women actually ended up buying shares into this course. This is 100 years ago, by the way.
Wow.
And yeah, so as a result, the Ladies Golf Club of Toronto became like this place where women can play, so that like to leave the men alone so that they could actually get tee times. But while the men were at war, women were playing golf all over, and then they came back and they had to like just couldn't go there anymore. So it like was born out of just this real human necessity. And then it's still a place where only females can have memberships there, but men can still play. And I thought that was so interesting because I think it's one of the only known courses in the world. However, I have been told there might be some others. It was really vague, and it's certainly in North America. It's the only female run founded a golf course where only women can play. And I ended up writing this story, and then I started just partway through ranting and realizing like it was like a Pandora's box of all the bullshit, the comments, the like passive aggressive shit that I've dealt with on the golf course, being filming the show, playing. Like, wow, it was so crazy. I mean, I remember and now I'm ranting, but I remember filming the show, and men would like stop in their carts and get out and be like, wow, score golf. Oh, you guys are so great. Oh, it's so, wow, I'm starstruck. Ah, and then they'd shake Jason's hand, and then they'd look at me. And this one time, this guy went, "You are so pale. You look like a vampire."
Thanks.
And I was like, okay,
Where
cool.
do you go with that one?
That's
Come on,
so
improv
cool.
gal. Where do you go with that one? Come on.
Exactly. It's like either I absolutely destroy him, like making fun of the way he looks, which honestly I would never. Like to me, that is like just the laziest form of communication. And I was like, I just stared at him and I just watched him walk away. And I like look at my all male production team, and their jaws were just like,
Wow.
like dropped. And it happened so many times that I think they started being aware of sexism in golf because they were golfing with me. Like, I don't think those guys that I shot the show with would have necessarily understood just how deep that goes.
Wow. Well, that's a story. Thank you for sharing that. And sadly that happens
It's so
thousands of times every
weird.
day on golf courses all over North America, which is, you think we're beyond that, but there's still so much work to do. Okay, I want to
Well,
flip this
and
around.
that's
I'm
yeah.
sorry, go ahead, please. You go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's why, like, when it happens a few times a year, I would say, that like really crazy comments are thrown at female golfers. Like this
Mhm.
one time, this guy I hit, and then he pulled up in his golf cart and he said, "Wow, great hit." And I said, "Thanks." And he said, "I really didn't think it was gonna go well." And so I stopped to watch. And I mean, you nailed it. And I was like, "I'm glad your expectations for me are so low. Thanks." Like it was just so it went from a compliment to like, and just so you know, I didn't think you would hit it well.
And I'm assuming that comment was just inferred because you have fallopian tubes and he does
I,
not?
I was like, wow, exactly. I was like, dude, oh man, it's like
Wow.
some crazy scenarios. And so I think I realized I work with really great men. I have awesome men around me. I have a lot of guy friends. I don't expect sexism to happen like that, like so blatant. And on the golf course, it still does. So I am going to be the one who still rants a bit about men on golf courses and about females not feeling comfortable there. It's like one of the few spaces I'm like, yeah, we need those female events. We need to push female storytelling, and we really need to talk about the sexism that happens, because we're not exaggerating.
No, you were not. And I've heard so many stories also of negative experiences on the golf course. And thankfully I've also heard very positive ones
Yeah,
of support out there. So we just need more of the good ones, but we do need to
totally.
kind of shine the light on the bad actors that are still out there. And sadly, there's a lot of them. There
I
still is.
know.
There
I
really is.
know.
So hey, as we finish up here, because we did talk about entrepreneurship and also about your experience in improv and how that's informed you as with your business, your creativity, your confidence, and also with how you apply that to golf. So we'll hold off on that because we talked about it on the podcast. So again, I
Mhm.
really encourage people to listen to that. I think down below we've actually got
Okay.
there we go, scrolling to the bottom there. Oh, I think that's for the YouTube channel there. So actually we'll get that up there. Just hang out there. There we go. So good old mod.golf. There we go. Pointing below. We got all that good stuff going on. But one thing I do want to ask you, because and this is completely from a personal perspective here as a bit of a fanboy, but I've noticed that you've done a lot of well, you do so many things, but also as part of your acting career, you've been
Yeah.
on a little show, this one here, and there's a shot of Pedro's butt there. So I am a bit of a Pedro fanboy. So please tell me, have you talked to him directly? And the reason I want to know
Oh yeah.
is the fact then that means that I am 1 degree of separation now knowing you from Pedro Pascal.
You are. Yep. I hung out with him
Yay!
for 4 days straight, and it was the coolest experience. It was right at the start of filming, so they were all getting to know each other, because I think, yeah, well, I was on the first episode. And so they were all bonding. We were all in the same tent, like just waiting to film our scenes. I lay dead in a scene with the main cast, and they've got their like guns pointed at each other, and I'm just like dead at their feet. So I got to not only hang out with them, but also be in a scene where they're all interacting. And then in between, I would just like get off the floor, just like, ow, because the scene was really long, and like I'm
Yeah.
so uncomfortable. And I would like get off the floor, and Pedro Pascal would just be like, dude, you are a trooper. And I'm like, thank you. And then he's like, one more time for Gina. And like, he's so funny. And I'd just be like, screw you.
Like him in that role is so intense. And that guy, he is a funny dude. Like that is acting there because he's a very funny man.
He's hilarious. He's boisterous. He's full of like flighty energy. Like it really fascinating personality. And yeah, I agree with you. Like the brooding Joel energy of that show is so different. It
Now I
was great.
realize you're only on for one episode. If your character would have been on all the complete season, maybe you could have then hung out a little more and talked them into having a golf day outing. So hey, are you encouraging any of your actor friends to pick up a golf club for the first time?
Yes, I definitely have. Because some of them actually, when I say I work in golf, they're like, oh, seriously? Sometimes I get that response. I think too, because actors in Toronto they're not making a lot of money. Okay,
Yeah,
so there's a bit of an accessibility thing sometimes, or a
right.
perception of accessibility, where it's like, oh, I can't afford to play golf. And it's like, well, there are like some great municipal courses. You could get a secondhand set of clubs. It's much more accessible than people think. I think there's still such a stigma around it. But people, especially during the pandemic here in Toronto, they started golfing and they've stuck to it.
Nice, nice. And well, we've definitely seen that uptick in that on golf courses, and even taking your friends. You could go now that there's a Top Golf in Toronto that hasn't come up here. There's other options with Launchpad in Calgary where you grew up, and now that's expanding across the country, and a lot of indoor venues that are everywhere. So do you do that as we finish up? I'm just curious. Do you for maybe a first experience with some people? Have you actually done that? Have you gone to an indoor simulator place where they've got some music and food and drinks and that type of thing? Is that something that you do as part of
Yeah.
your entertainment time?
Yeah, I love Launchpad in Calgary. It's awesome. I went there. I actually did a piece on it for Narcity. I did some freelancing for them back in the day, and yeah, it was so much fun because it's nighttime. Oh, and then a storm rolled in. It was a snowstorm. I'll send you the piece. It's super fun. And so we were like hitting into like a blizzard, basically, but it was covered. And it's like swirling snow. It was super magical. And they've got like the neon rings to mark like the
Yeah, yeah.
yardage, and it was a super fun night. And then I also go to what's it called? It's a place on King Street near Liberty Village. Simulator there, pretty good spot. Different vibe than Launchpad, like not as grand,
Yes.
but just a great place just to like go before you head out for the night or whatever. So yeah,
Well,
I enjoy simulators.
well, you got to trick some of your non-golfing friends to go there before you go out and just think they're going for drinks and food, and next thing you know, they got a club in their hand.
I think that's a thing, and not all of them are going to translate that into playing on a course. Like I think there might just be like a separate hobby that is just simulators. I could actually see that happening.
You're bang on there with that, because I know some of the statistics over the years, and since I had worked with Topgolf as a design consultant, uh, so I know a little bit about their business model and the insights there,
Yeah.
and they've identified through the survey they've done, about 50% of the people that pick up a golf club at Topgolf identify as non-golfers, as in never played before, or maybe like every once in a while, or they do like mini golf or whatever it is, but they don't play traditional golf maybe once a
Yeah.
year in a golf tournament that they don't want to be at, in a scramble, something like that. But it's also been shown that there's not that conversion from going to a Top Golf or an indoor entertainment venue to then playing outdoors, which Callaway, who bought Top Golf, is now they're separating those companies and changing that model around. Their original thought was, I think it was all anecdotal, they didn't have a lot of hard evidence to base it on, or numbers, is they figured, hey, if all of our golf balls, all of our golf clubs are in every Top Golf and people are seeing it for the first time, and then when they want to go buy golf clubs and they think everything else in price is equal, I remember having a good time there, I'm going to use those clubs. That is not true. That hasn't happened. There isn't that conversion.
Okay.
So even though you like to think that it makes sense that it would, but that has not happened. So you've nailed that there is not that conversion between just going for shits and giggles
Yeah.
and in a simulator while having some drinks and some bar food with your friends,
Yeah.
and then playing 18 holes. It doesn't happen for the most part.
For me, it's an entirely different craving as well. Like it satisfies a different thing for me. It's like I think a simulator is like a really fun night out, but that doesn't satisfy the same craving I have for going on a golf course. Like that is like I'm outside, it's daytime, the sun is out, I'm experiencing the nature. I mean, two totally different parts for me, like absolutely, of my brain.
Yeah. Well, once again, I can go on. I wanted to keep this to 10 minutes, but I love talking to you so much.
I,
It keeps going on. So one thing I want to say, anybody that's watching here in the comments here, we want to hear what you love to do. Do you love playing at golf venue entertainment facilities, indoor, outdoor, like Top Golf in the US or up here in Canada with what we have? Or do you just play green grass? Have you never played golf before? Are you thinking about it? What would it take for you, as a man, a woman, anybody out there that's never played golf before, to play golf for the first time? So we'd love to get that conversation going. So Gina, I can keep going on here, but I know you've got things to do, because you've got a golf-based sitcom pilot that you need to get out there to the world, which we talked about on the podcast. We're not going to go into that again, but and we've already established that I am going to be a bit character on your show, even though I'm not an actor. But I don't care. You have to hire me, or don't
I
even
don't
pay
think
me.
you're old enough to play my dad.
There
I
we
don't,
go. I can pull that off.
I don't know. How old are you?
I just turned 60, so I can do it.
Okay, that's true. My
There we
real
go.
dad is 66,
All
65.
right.
Okay, you can do it.
There we go. Absolutely. I got enough gray in here. I can make it work. If I
You
shave
gotta
this
age
off, I
you
may
up a
look a
little.
little younger, but we'll keep it going here. There we go. Well, I guess I have to be a little bit grizzled and downtrodden, or at least beaten up by life. It sounds like
Yes, you
of
do.
the opening scene there. So
You do.
I don't know. I'm sure we can work. Maybe I look grizzled enough already. I'll leave that to you. Maybe I'm good as is. I don't need hair and makeup. Maybe I do. I don't know.
Can you just not take care of yourself for like the next year, and then you should be in good shape by the time we film it?
Oh, I can let myself go. Believe me. I got a tub
Me
of ice
too.
cream just with my name on it that's just waiting for me afterwards when we're done here. So
That's
that'll be my
commitment.
start.
That's good.
Good
Method
stuff.
acting.
Why don't we leave it there? Gina Phillips, hey, thanks so much for joining us today on the Mod Golf YouTube channel. As I mentioned, we had also another awesome conversation on the Mod Golf podcast. Have that link below. And why don't we leave it at that? And as I said, I'm going to be in Toronto in a couple of months. I hope we get together in real life and our mediocre golf games can converge and we can have some fun.
I love that. That's going to be great.
Good stuff.
Thanks,
All
Colin.
right. You have a great day. We'll see you
Okay,
soon.
you too. Bye.
Boom.